Hello viewers, Anhor of Odyssey here, and I am joined by...
Ivyboard.
Farmer Bob.
King Felsa.
Sir Mutton Chops.
Tesseract.
Duarana.
Zaus. Mitchell.
And we are bringing you our initial impressions commentary on survival mode. Now, if you're not familiar with what survival mode is, it's a wave-style event where 8 players face off against waves of progressively tougher enemies and bosses. 10 rounds in total, and each round consists of 3 waves of ads, followed by a battle with 2 bosses. It's currently on PC test. Who wants to kick us off with their thoughts?
Just to say that this video is from the run that we did on Friday night, was it?
Yes.
Yes.
How far was it you guys got in that?
The bosses of round 6.
Yes. We stopped at the boss of round 6 because we were down 2 players and decided that it would just take forever to keep going.
Well, first impressions. I love it. It's
Much needed
Yeah.
challenge.
yeah, it's the challenge I wanted.
I'm a really big fan of this kind of content, and I think it really does meet a lot of the expectations that I had. The one impression that I have that really sticks with me is that most of the boss fights can be treated kind of the same way, which is essentially 2 tanks separate the bosses, and then they become much easier to deal with, just much more predictable and easier to handle.
Yeah, I think that's slightly a detriment to the content, though. It's once you get past the beginning one, which was Ursa and Metallo, they have kind of a mechanic where Ursa pulls you in, Metallo pushes you away. That kind of separation was required because of the mechanics. But after that, very few of them actually work together. They're just individual bosses that have been put in the same instance. And I think they could have they've missed a trick. They could have done something with the 2 of them, like if they get pulled apart too far, something happens, or if they're too close, then something else could happen, you know. A little bit more to it, but it's still enjoyable.
A bit like some of the old school Batman raid ads, like the Elite Guardians and such like, who teleported to each other, but if they were too close, they put a shield up.
Yeah,
That sort of
so
thing.
it's just
Yeah.
something to make it unique to each round, because like I said, it's the same boss, it's different bosses, but it's the same mechanics. You get the tanks to split them apart.
Obviously,
as
this
well
only
this is-
applies to the bosses that we encountered.
So
Sure.
far, but personally I wouldn't see them being any different beyond round, because we've seen round 7 some of it. I don't think 8, 9
Yeah.
and 10 would be that much different.
The other thing is that they are intending to do multiple different survival mode missions, so it could be, you know, feedback for different ones that further down the line is just to have some interesting mechanics for the bosses like that.
Yeah, they talked
definitely-
about... Sorry, go on, Bob.
I was gonna say I definitely see this used as something like in between content that you use once you've finished the new DLC content. You're kind of looking for a challenge for yourself. So if it's gonna be something where it's just stand and go at a boss over and over again for different survival modes, that could get old quick if we're gonna separate them and go at it like Andrew's talking about.
Yeah.
So, does somebody
Well-
want to talk through what's going on at the moment in the
Yeah.
instance?
I can go with that. Right, the video just now we're still on round 1. They bring out, there's 3 waves of ads, and there's 3 different combinations you can get, which will give you a different amount of ads. The weakest you get are the Weaponeers of Quard, where you get a lot of ads. Intermediate would be the Yellow Lanterns, and then the Red Lanterns individually are much more powerful, but you only get 4 or 5 of them. You get that.
They also have
Go on.
the Manhunters, which are actually a little tougher than the Red Lanterns. You can actually melee the Red Lanterns if you stand behind them, whereas the Manhunters tend to do a lot more AoE, and you have to treat them as ranged.
The villain side we
One-
saw you get blue lanterns instead.
Yeah, blue. You get blue and green lanterns.
Cool.
Yeah,
From
it's
what
worth
I've seen.
pointing out as well that it's like they said earlier that there'll be different maps, but this one's Owen Science Cell, so they've really drawn on the lantern mythology here. Makes sense.
One thing that kind of surprised me that the ads didn't scale with the round as far as the number. I was kind of expecting to be overwhelmed with ads by the 4th or 5th or 6th round. But it really was. It was more of a CR bump, but as far as the number of ads, it wasn't increasing.
Yeah, because as you can see from the video, the enemies on this level are CR 108, I think that is. And it just
Yes.
ramps up every level by 1 point until it hits round 7, where it jumps by 2. No idea where it does past that yet.
By 2. On round 2, they go to 110. So
Okay.
it actually jumps up by 2 after the first round, and then it jumps up by 1 up until round 7. It jumps up by 2 again.
I think the only thing that's going to annoy me with this is the fact that they're saying, to start off with at least, it's going to be only on for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Like seasonal events, it's going to be rotating in and out, and the idea would be that eventually they would have enough of them that there'd always be one available. But until we've got a lot more than we've got now, then that's not going to be the case.
Well, I think their current plan is to keep it up until they have the next one made. So I feel like they're planning on having it up 24/7.
That's not the indication that they've
Hope
given
so.
on the streams, though. They've definitely said it might. They're going to try and have one up all the time, but it's not necessarily going to be the case.
Well, that's the thing about test to live. You get a bunch of changes. We can hope we get it permanently, but see what happens.
Saying that though, permanently, I mean, we've been talking about it in League chat and people posting in the forums. Is it really got to be content that you touch that regularly? For example, getting to round 5, we're in gear that's about the equivalent of 106, right? And so getting to round 5 was 2.5 hours. And that was an intense 2.5 hours. There was no break, there was no pausing. It was just back-to-back fighting. And the group we had was, some of the best. The communication was on point. We knew what we were doing. If you have a bit of a shaky group, it could take longer. And people are saying, they don't really want to step in there and have to invest 4 hours at a time trying to battle your way to the top, maybe even more sometimes. And they posted a response saying that they're looking into a kind of pause/level select mechanic. Quite controversial amongst some people. I'm for it. I think it will be useful, regardless of who the content's designed to be aimed at. There will be everyone on the server trying it, and there will be negativity surrounding. Why is it designed for them? Why can't we have a chance to pause it, level select, etc., etc.? I know some people don't agree with it.
I'm all for the pause. Every 2 rounds, give us a cog button to before activate, so that we can choose to activate the next one. Is fair enough. But I'm not for the starting whatever you want. I feel that the time investment is part of the endurance part, and as your characters, as you become a better player, as your characters get stronger, the time in each round will get shorter and shorter. So you will be able to get to that point faster. You'll know the mechanics inside and out. You'll get there faster again.
I think it'll open up quite a few glitches as well if they do it like that. But they'd have to look at every single person and the level that they've got up to.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You were talking about a shaky group earlier. If they are a shaky group, there's a chance that they'll spend only an hour and wipe early, rather than spending 3 hours and getting to round 6 or whatever.
One of the things that I want to point out, and this kind of changes my mind on the previous topic about the starting wherever you want, MEPS had pointed out during the live stream that they were looking to have sort of an infinite mode, which essentially means it'll go on forever, scaling as you beat each round, just to see how far you can go. If that is what's implemented, then I would be fine with being able to start at, level X. But as it stands now, where there's only 10 levels to get to, if that is how they get released, I cannot see that being reasonable, just because as we progress, as we get better and stronger, we're going to spend a lot less time in there, and it's just going to become, people are just going to start at level 10, finish it, and done with.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
suppose.
Not going to be endurance anymore.
I suppose starting at like every 10, being able to jump every 10 levels is a bit different when you're starting to get that size.
I think that was part of the idea of kind of rotating them seasonally, so that like this one will only make sense while we're at kind of the current gear level. And then when they implement the next one, obviously it wouldn't start at 108 because we would have better gear, better mods, we'd be better. So it would probably start a few levels up and go farther, and then this one would rotate out of sequence. And the next time this one rotated back in, it wouldn't start at 108 because it would be during another tier level. So the fact, like these 10 levels, by the time we would gear out enough that we'd be over geared for this, it would rotate out and it would be different the next time we saw it.
When you introduce the level select, it basically changes the meaning of the whole thing. It's no longer survival mode, it's how hard a boss can you take.
Yep.
I think in that regard, and with regard to the amount of time it takes to get through into the higher levels, I was kind of surprised to find myself enjoying being in a piece of what is basically raid content for 3 hours and not really being frustrated, but being sort of, I don't know, kind of excited to be playing for that long in one place with like the same 7 other people and not being, it's not a wipe fest, it's not a big failure. Usually and traditionally in the rest of the game, if you're in a place for 3 hours, it's because there are problems. This is the first time that you could be somewhere for 3 hours playing continuously and be winning.
Got to agree with that.
That's a very fair point.
That's a good way to look at it.
When we were doing it, it didn't feel like 2.5 hours at all. I mean, I've forgotten to eat dinner and so on and so forth. It was exciting at the time. It's just whether that charm is going to wear off is the issue.
I think it is. I mean, it's like any content when you spend a long time working on one particular boss fight or one particular segment of something, and it takes you that long to get to it, you can get really frustrated at the early levels. I mean, I think kind of the best in-game example I can think of is Prime Battleground. And when that was launched, you take down the 3 sub-bosses, and then you fight Brainiac, and the fight completely changes. And the number of people that wanted the fight to have a reset at Brainiac, instead of fully resetting the entire raid, once you've downed the 3 sub-bosses, you bring out, if you die, you can automatically skip to Brainiac.
Yeah, I remember
and it was the same thing.
I remember the forums cry about that. They were desperate for that. It was like, oh, I got past the 3 of them, Brainiac killed us, I can't be bothered fighting those 3 guys again.
Yeah, but it's understandable as well, because you do spend a huge amount of time doing something that you can do in order to get to something that the thing that you're interested in. So I get it.
But why are these people running Prime as opposed to survival mode? Prime is, I think it's kind of unfair to compare this to progression instances.
It was like when we were at Prime level when Tier 4 was the top.
Yeah, I'm saying that people wanted a level skip in Prime, like they're asking for the same reasons that they're asking for the level skip in survival mode, because they say we can do this. Let us jump to the bit that we want to practice on. Basically, let us not have to put in that time investment in order to get to the later things. And it's not exactly the same situation because Prime was a raid and this is survival mode, but it's for the same reasons that they want it. And it is, it's the same frustration that you get when you do it. It's that time that you put in that you then feel you're almost wasting because you're not getting anything out of it. It's just getting you to where you need to be.
Let's take the conversation slightly different. Rewards and feats. So currently there are no feats associated with survival mode. We'll talk about it in a sec, but the rewards themselves, so you can get base items, And as you progress through, you'll get exo shirts, starting with iron. As far as we got iron exo shirt, and then we got the bronze exo shirt. And it's our thinking that as you progress, you'll get the silver, you'll get the gold. And they come in various colors, and one of them is called custom glow, so you can, custom glow it yourself. Do we think that those kind of rewards are sufficient for this content?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't like the way the base items drop. I had suggestion already on the test server that we are awarded a currency specific to survival mode, and when we beat a certain round, it unlocks a loot table of base items on a vendor that we can use to buy, as opposed to getting random drops.
I'm in favor of at least the shirt mechanic. The base items would have to be something unique to and very interesting for me to really be excited about them. But the shirts themselves, I think, are sufficient loot items, simply because it keeps it away from progression. But the styles look really good, cool. They're sort of like trophies that you've reached Mark X on survival mode. And they don't make a difference when it comes to going back in there. It's just, you're still the same player, still the same stats. You just have, this mark to wear on your chest now. I think that is definitely in the spirit of the fight, and the reason the content was made is essentially to show off and brag.
I think the shirts look really cool, but I kind of wish they were a bit more distinct.
Yeah.
Well, my biggest.
Do you feel like the color difference isn't enough?
Yeah, I
From
mean, the
each
color
other?
difference and stuff is that, we can change colors in styles tabs usually. So just getting a different colored item feels like they could have done a bit more for it.
Well,
I think every round needs to have a reward as well. I mean, beating round 7 currently in our 92 gear seems like a significant achievement, but you get nothing for it. And I understand this is the first iteration through, but that seems like an oversight.
You're supposed to get potentially a base item for it. Locke did say that he's upping the drop rate on the base items because they seem a bit low.
Right, but in going with what Mutton was saying, how it's a bragging right, like no one's going to visit my base to see my trophy.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I'm really hoping for is that it's only a shirt in this one. I hope that the next one gives you the leg style, and then as they bring out more survival modes, eventually finish a whole style of fancy glowing stuff.
That would be sweet.
That would be.
But again, they could have done that for this.
Yeah, but they did say that this is a prototype, and they were putting very little effort into it.
As far as feats, I'm glad that there aren't any feats.
Yeah.
Because I want survival mode to be a choice, not an obligation.
Yes.
But are you saying that as a blanket because you don't want people to have to do it for increased power? Or, I mean, would you be against having 10 feat points awarded for every round you complete? So that's a potential of 1 skill point. Now, 1 skill point is not going to break the game in any fashion. Would you be against that?
When you start bringing
I
in
don't think it's necessary.
feat points, it then opens it up to, I don't want to say the word casual people, but
being too hard.
people will want it nerfed so that they can get the feat points.
Yeah, if they are locked out from getting any sort of character advancement, there's going to be hissy fits.
Skill points are progression in this game. You've got gear
Especially with weapon
progression.
mastery.
There's no leveling increase. It's your skill points and your CR. And the survival mode is not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be progression. I personally don't really care if they award 10 feat points or not, but that would be how I would look at it. Would be it's technically, not progression. So
Makes sense. So if there's one thing you would add, change, or remove, we'll go through a list. So if there was one thing you could add, change, or remove, what would it be, Ivy Bird?
Honestly, the break every two rounds is the most I would ask for it.
Bob?
I'm gonna have to agree with that. Some kind of buzz mechanic.
Felter?
I like the idea of adding more interaction between the specific bosses, and that they work with each other more, such as Ursa and Metallo do.
Mitch?
Pretty much what people have said so far. Yeah, skipping levels would be great, but yeah, it kind of goes against the point of it being a... But I mean, the break thing would help a lot with that.
Mutton?
I have to go along with Felsa in this one and making the bosses interact a little bit more and making them more unique rather than just two bosses in a room that you split up and treat individually.
Tess?
I agree with what's been said, but to say something a bit different, I'd probably say a guaranteed reward for each round instead of you might possibly get a base drop.
Liorana?
I might have missed it since I was distracted looking at your green bars to keep you all alive. But maybe something to make clearer when the bosses are gonna do a possibly one-shot mechanic.
And Zows?
I think the reward thing that was just brought up, making sure every level rewards something that you can definitely brag about and show to everyone, because every single level is significant.
Especially since you are being loot locked when you run it, and it costs replays to unlock.
Brilliant.
What
Well,
about
that was our
yourself?
initial impressions for the survival mode. No release date as yet, but if you've got access to PC Test, I definitely recommend getting a team and trying it out. Hopefully we'll get more commentaries coming over time, tactics perhaps for survival mode. And as always, thank you for watching.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See you around.
Laters.